Thanks everyone for joining us today. I have Dr. Tom Ingegno, who is a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, specializing in integrative health and the driving force behind Charm City Integrative Health. He shows people how to regulate your immune system, improve circulation, and change the way you think. His recent book is The Cupping Book, Unlocking the Secrets of Ancient Healing. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Tom, tell me, how did you get into this work?
So many people they turn to East Asian medicine and it really solve the problem that no one else was able to help them with. But I came about it from more of a interested in helping other people. I was a pre-med major. I was supposed to go and be a Western doctor
Mhm.
and something just didn't feel right. And through what I'd say is a series of serendipitous events, I found acupuncture. And it was little things like working in my grandfather's pharmacy when I was growing up, and he was counting out pills. And he said, this guy's going to take 3 of these a day for the rest of his life. And not only was the guy not making that much money, but these pills were still pretty expensive.
Mhm.
And he looked at me and he said, there's a better way, and I'm hoping you find it. And that kind of got stored in my memory bank. And then in college, I took a Chinese philosophy course and a Tai Chi class after school.
Mhm.
And I really like the principles of balance. And East Asian medicine found me in my junior year. I received a postcard in the mail from a school that was like 10 minutes away from my parents' house. And I went to this open house that the card was promoting. And I came home with the paperwork to apply for my graduate program in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And I never looked back after that.
Wow. Do you ever have people that are afraid of needles?
All the time. Yeah, no one loves the needles, but at the same time, I do think we've programmed ourselves to be afraid of that and associate the needles with a negative thing, and that
Right.
comes from shots.
Right.
Acupuncture needles are designed very differently. One, they're infinitely smaller, right? So
Mhm.
we're talking about things that are roughly the width of 2 or 3 strands of hair. But
Right.
the way they're designed is they're pushing the tissue out of the way. A syringe is meant to cut intentionally to make a hole to be able to draw something up or put something in. And these needles are meant to just create some space to get into the tissue.
Mhm.
And then when they come out, hopefully you've done very little to no tissue damage and you won't even get a drop of blood in most cases.
Mhm.
In most cases, we can put these needles in relatively without any pain whatsoever.
I think this is an important point to make because I love acupuncture, but a lot of people don't understand the mindset behind it. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So when we talk about acupuncture from a classical perspective, when we start bringing up things like chi and channels and meridians, it tends to put a lot of Westerners off because you have to go to school to understand the system. And even then, it is pretty confusing.
Mhm.
When we talk about it as a system that was developed prior to the invention of blood work, microscopes, x-rays, MRIs, and we see that they really did use the scientific method. They were checking everything. So they were developing these case studies where somebody would come in, say X, Y, and Z, and then we'd question them and they'd press all these areas of their body and find these sore spots. And they, over thousands of years, developed all of these correlations. When somebody came in with X, Y, and Z symptoms, maybe it hurts here, maybe it hurts here, maybe it hurts there. So it was a really scientific based approach that just took millennia.
Mhm.
Now we currently have more systematic reviews in the Cochrane database than physical therapy and chiropractic put together. And I'm not knocking either of those fields.
Mhm.
The idea is we're trying to figure out how these classical concepts actually hold up. And truth be told, we're seeing that everything that we were told classically that acupuncture does and East Asian medicine does, there are studies to uphold that.
Mhm.
And we see this through some big functions. The overarching function, when we put the needles in, after about 10 or 15 minutes, we regulate vagal tone, right? So this is fight or flight, rest and digest, the autonomic nervous system, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But after about 10 or 15 minutes, we switch you into that rest and digest mode, which is when you get more circulation through the body, your
Mhm.
heart rate slows down, you're breathing deeper and slower, you're getting more blood flow to your intestines. So
Mhm.
you have better quality blood with more nutrients and oxygen in it. And
Mhm.
that gets into all the areas of the body that might need help. and it flushes out metabolic waste and inflammatory processes.
Mhm.
So that in turn helps improve digestion, regulates immune system function, helps with hormonal balancing. And then we partner this with choosing points that have a specific connection to certain tissue or functions of the body.
Mhm.
And that's really how we formulate a treatment for each individual. It's not just somebody says back pain and okay, here's the points we do for back pain. Each one of those treatments is customized to whoever's in front of us and,
Mhm.
and really not just the one symptom, but who they are as a whole person.
If somebody, say, breaks their wrist, is that
Yeah.
cutting into a meridian, and should you
If
treat that with acupuncture?
you break your wrist, go get a
Well, of
cast.
course, but, like
And the follow-up, yes, it's residual pain to promote more healing.
Right.
Clearly, we're not going to be able to put the needles under a cast,
Right.
but up the arm and down the arm to increase circulation through that area and promote the proper healing process
Oh.
is something that acupuncture can do. Now, the long-term damage, let's say if somebody had a cut or scars or tissue like that,
Mhm.
yes, we want to increase circulation around that as well, because a lot of times when people get into a big car accident or something and then they get like plates and screws and all
Mhm.
that, they can cause some pain. And the main reason for that is not necessarily that they're inhibiting the muscle function, but you have inflammation. Your body's saying this is foreign material in my body. So I keep it encapsulated. I keep
Mhm.
inflammation around it.
Right.
And when we tell the body, oh, that's all right, move blood through there, don't have that inflammation, the pain goes down and
Right.
it feels more normal.
How does it release pain and inflammation?
A few different reasons. Big thing is opening of the blood vessels. Like I said, after about 10 or 15 minutes, we see this huge vasodilation throughout the body. And when we put needles near points that we want to affect or in those areas, say if we were talking about a broken wrist and we put something up the arm, your body treats that needle affectionately. They'll call it in Japan an artificial splinter. Something penetrated the surface of my skin that shouldn't be there. And as a natural healing response, which is what we're playing with, your body sends blood to that area. When it realizes that I have this teeny tiny hole and it's a sterile needle and there's not really anything I need to fight off or fix in this area,
Mhm.
it continues to send that blood flow through that area to look for things to take care of in a smart way where these red blood cells and white blood cells and protein
Mhm.
chains are looking, but they're going to adhere to sites that have inflammation and need to be fixed. The other thing that happens during an acupuncture treatment is we release all these neurotransmitters. So one of them is endorphins, right? We think about that when we run or when we do heavy exercise.
Mhm.
But endorphins are molecules. They look like endogenous morphine, which is where we get that name from. Endo, internal, and in is from morphine. So
Mhm.
we have these pain killing compounds that are generated during acupuncture treatment.
Mhm.
In addition to that, in the 90s, we learned about a system called the endocannabinoid system. So these are compounds that look just like cannabis. Guess what? Acupuncture stimulates the production of those. And we know that we can use cannabis to bond to certain receptor sites along the central nervous system to help regulate pain. In
Mhm.
fact, one of those compounds is called anandamide. And ananda is this beautiful Sanskrit word that means bliss.
Mhm.
So they actually call this the bliss compound, and acupuncture can kick that out. While that's not directly treating an injury,
Mhm.
that is sending pleasant signals to the brain telling them, hey, we're okay. And that reduces pain.
Right. This is great. So, what's the origin of cupping? Your book is about
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny because cupping, my degrees are in East Asian medicine, and cupping is not necessarily East Asian in origin. We're not exactly sure. That has probably been lost to time, but we can say that it's the earliest record we have right now is going back to 1515 BC in Egypt
Wow.
in a text called the Ebers Papyrus. And I always find it funny when people think, oh, back then no one knew anything. The Ebers Papyrus, on top of talking about cupping, actually talks about plastic surgery. It goes into great detail about reconstructing a nose that's been ripped off. And
Wow.
they knew how to do it. They knew how to make a template for a new nose. They knew how to graft the skin off the forehead. I know we're getting off the topic
No,
of
we're
cupping,
not
but just
because they knew
I
more back
really,
then.
yeah, yeah, I really want to say, like, we weren't a bunch of idiots looking around. You say, look, these guys built the temple, these giant pyramids.
Yeah.
Of course, they knew things
Right.
that probably wasn't even the earliest use of cupping. That's just when somebody wrote it down and the last record that we could find, or the
Mhm.
earliest record we could find, I should say. But
Right.
within all of this, cupping migrated around the world. And there isn't a country, at least connected on the other side of the world, that didn't do it, right? So that's Africa, the entire continent, Asia, the entire continent, Europe, the entire continent. And it came out of this Middle East, Greece, Egypt kind of area
Mhm.
and just spread everywhere. And it spread earlier than we would have called it the Silk Trade route. Because of that, I'm really passionate about giving people things that they have, one, great clinical effect, but are easy to use, and two, that connect to everybody's culture. So when I was teaching this technique at an acupuncture school in Manhattan, a huge amount of foreign students. And every one of them, when we talked about cupping, would say, Grandma used to do this, right? So you have this
Wow.
family connection, you have this historical connection to a
Mhm.
tool. And then we have modern clinical evidence that says, yes, absolutely, these studies show that it can be used for neck and shoulder pain, low back pain. And I wrote this book now because traditionally we would use fire to create this vacuum, right? So the cup has to have a vacuum.
Mm.
And you normally would take a torch, run it in and out of that cup real quick and put it on somebody's back before the oxygen can get back in and create that vacuum and pull the skin into the cup and create some space to get some circulation going.
Mhm.
Today we have silicone cups. We have cups that have pumps. The book covers all of the modern styles of cups that don't break and you don't need to use fire to use. So we've made it infinitely safer thanks to technology. And it seemed just like a natural progression to hand it back to people so they can be doing it in their households.
Mhm. Wow. So my kids were athletes and they did cupping and
Yeah.
it benefited them, but it was the first I ever heard about it. What does it help with back pain? What the idea is just to rel
Increase circulation.
increase it.
It's
Mhm.
very simple. So when we have an injured area or a tight area, we worked out too hard, right? That
Mhm.
lactic acid in that case builds up. We feel stiff the next day. I'm pretty stiff after a pretty rough deadlift workout yesterday.
Right.
So I'll probably have my kids put some cups on me when they get home from camp today. But within that, pull the skin away from the fascia away from the muscle, and it creates this space
Uh-huh.
at the superficial part of the body. You're a closed system, so blood pulls up to the surface
Yeah.
to fill in that void, and fresh blood comes into the deeper tissue, the muscles or whatever, even 6 inches up into the body. So in some cases, we can use this for respiratory disorders and digestive disorders because we're increasing circulation to the lungs and the intestines.
Mhm.
So it's pretty interesting that this technique, which is relatively low tech, right? All we have to do is create a little bit of a vacuum, can have this profound effect on tissue 6 inches into the body.
Mhm.
And it gained a lot of publicity. I'm in Baltimore. Michael Phelps is a hometown hero. 2016, he showed up. The first interview after his first race was he was covered in cut marks.
Yeah, I
And
saw
the
that,
next
yeah.
day, the news was in my office filming a piece.
What are some misconceptions of Chinese medicine?
I've heard a bunch of different things, and there's so many terms that we use, and they often get confused. People go, "Oh, this is homeopathic." Homeopathic means life cures, and it isn't. We're involving a modality. In that case, we would consider it allopathic. We're doing something to treat a disease process.
Mhm.
It's not like we're adding more things that cause the same symptom. So homeopathic medicine is its own thing. I'm not going to say it's great or bad. I'm just saying it's its own thing.
Mhm.
And the other thing is that this isn't research based or that this is made up or you have to believe in it. I mentioned earlier that we have more studies than physical therapy. And a lot of those studies, when they originally started, were an attempt to discredit acupuncture.
Right.
And they get the results and they go, oh my God, no, it actually does work for this.
Right.
And then the questions got savvier, which were like, how is it doing that? And classically, we'd say, oh, the chi wasn't flowing right in the body. We put some needles in or we gave some herbs and that corrected. And while that statement sounds so new agey, so backwards, it it's true. We can
Mhm.
see all these physiological changes that happen. And if we look at chi as we would translate it energy, we're saying, does the body have the potential energy or the kinetic energy to do the thing that it needs? If
Mhm.
it doesn't, we say there isn't enough chi, it's stuck, or there's some other chi, a pernicious influence, like an infection,
Mhm.
messing that up. And then we have to apply acupuncture, cupping, moxibustion, all these herbs, anything that's within the realm of East Asian medicine, which is a pretty big animal, to
Mhm.
balance that, correct that flow, and restore the patient's health.
Hold on a second. Let me just think. What can you be specific about different types of things that acupuncture healed?
Okay, so first of all, I get leery of the word heal or cure.
Okay.
Acupuncture is trying to get your body to work better.
Mhm.
But if you want specific things, that includes neurological issues, digestive disorders, that includes cardiovascular disorders. Musculoskeletal pain is the number one thing I think people use it for in the country, but not far behind that is gynecology. One of our biggest, we don't even specialize in this. I have colleagues that do specialize in this, is fertility.
Right.
And we
That
do very well with that.
I know, that's why I thought it's really interesting because it helps with the flow of energy and it's
Yeah.
all about helping relieve back pain, but a lot of people go for fertility, and I'm not sure
Yeah.
people know that thing.
Yeah. Anxiety and depression is another one. And
Mhm.
we can actually help regulate those neurotransmitters, the serotonin and dopamine levels in the body.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it replaces therapy, but we have studies that show the same number of appointments, therapy versus acupuncture, and the results are about the same. They see the same amount of improvement,
Yeah.
which is interesting, right?
Really interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
What is something that you did for a client that you didn't expect?
I have one patient, and I really clearly we're bound by HIPAA, but I don't think she'd mind. She came in for two things. She was getting a hip replacement, so she wanted to work on some of the pain until she got that done.
Right.
She was also a tobacco user.
Mhm.
So her surgeon said, you need to quit the tobacco before we do the surgery.
Mhm.
So within a short amount of time, we were able to get her not using tobacco at all. She's still tobacco free almost 2 years later.
Wow.
The thing that surprised me is we were treating her weekly up until the surgery. She made an appointment post hip replacement 2 weeks later. And I said, you're going to have to call and cancel that. You won't be walking. Hip surgery is not an easy thing.
Right.
And I'm not saying this was all acupuncture. Clearly, this woman has some amazing healing potential. But 2 weeks later, she came into my office with a cane. She was already moving around, already felt infinitely better than before.
Mhm.
And if that wasn't weird enough, she goes, my knee has really been bothering me for a long time too. She went back to the doc. She needed a knee replacement.
No.
So about 4 months later, she ended up with a knee replacement. She made another appointment 2 weeks later. And this is another time when I said, I think that's too soon. You won't be able to get here. She showed up this time with a walker. So a little bit more banged up, but she was fine. The
Mhm.
next visit, nothing. About 2 months later, so this is all within a year, she ended up falling and needed emergency back surgery.
This is unbelievable.
So she ended up getting a triple laminectomy. So that's basically they take the transverse processes off the back of the spine to create some room.
Oh.
2 weeks later, she was back in my damn office. And this is where I have to put that disclaimer, individual results may vary.
Yeah.
She is not the norm, but everything that I do for her, she seems to be amplified. She moves quicker. She heals better. It's
Mhm.
something about her, but within that, she credits the acupuncture for kicking that off. Now, everybody, depending on their healing potential, is going to have a different experience. It's
Mhm.
a double-edged sword when we have somebody that comes in and gets amazing results like that because they tell everybody and then they're like, Kate over here got it fixed in 2 treatments. Why am I still hurting? And then we have to talk about you're overweight or Kate had a strained muscle. You have a herniated disc.
Yeah.
Yours has been going on for 20 years. That was 3 days ago. So you have to individualize everybody's condition, even if it manifests as the same problem.
Mhm. What about if she was a positive person? What if her thought process was
Absolutely. We have plenty of studies that say that influences our outcomes. We
Mhm.
know that, right?
Mhm.
And even the placebo effect, right? So everything that somebody is doing that is a medical intervention
Mhm.
has some placebo to it, right?
Mhm.
Prayer, positive thinking, whether or not it's real, quote unquote, which is a weird statement. If you feel better, you feel better.
Mhm.
But whether or not it's real is pretty much pointless at that point because the person has healed, has recovered.
Mhm. Do you have a strong meditation?
I have been meditating. I say I've been practicing meditation since 1994.
Mhm.
I think this morning it was 2,036 days in a row that I've meditated.
Good.
And it has influenced my life in so many positive ways, but they're subtle and they take time to cultivate. Here in the West, it's push a button, give me a pill. And meditation takes some time. It's a cultivation.
I agree.
But it is one of the most positive things I can recommend to anybody, and it costs nothing.
What are the subtle changes you notice?
I noticed that I'm not a super angry person, but I could fly off the handle. I noticed that since I've had this over 2,000 days is over 5 years, I noticed that I'm much calmer. My thoughts are clearer. I can be more. My whole family's riddled with ADHD, and it's half our superpower, half our curse.
Right.
But I know that when I need to sit down and do things now, that meditation practice allows me to go, okay, I gotta stop the noise around me and focus on this.
So what makes you feel inspired or like your best self?
To say my profession is a weird one, right? People go to work and they come home. They're not that person. They're not that job,
Mhm.
right? You take off the uniform. I do the numbers for this company, but that's not who I am. East Asian medicine is a philosophy. It's a way of life. And my mentor really hammered this into me in when I say hammered, and that sounds aggressive, but to really get the medicine, it has to influence all aspects of your life. And it was a Charles Bukowski. Somebody said, find the thing that you love and let it kill you, which sounds so negative.
Oh,
But
but you
there's this little bit of love affair that I think not every East Asian medicine practitioner has, but enough of us do
Mhm.
that keeps us involved and it affects our lives. It affects our family relationships in a very positive way.
Mhm.
And that has been the most inspiring thing, not just being able to help patients with it, but having colleagues that I can go and have conversations with or take seminars and
Mhm.
learn new things. And it's so life affirming, engendering of energy that it just keeps me going. It gets me up in the morning. It puts me on phone calls with people like you. And it's a great time.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Do you treat your whole family regularly?
Oh, what's that other expression? The cobbler's kids have no shoes. Look,
Oh.
I'm very honest, but the number of times my wife will be in a conversation, she'll say, "Oh, he's an acupuncturist. Oh, he must get treated all the time." And my wife politely lies and goes, "Yeah, it's great." And found that I'm dad. The kids don't want to hear anything from me.
Yeah.
And I'm a little too close to my wife where I'm not possibly being, oh, yeah, just shut up and let me do this rather than, oh, the compassion I would extend to a patient. So I refer her to colleagues. I
Mhm.
will do things with my kids if they want, but even that's limited. I have a few colleagues that I'd be like, all right, do you want to come see so? And we'll have them look at this.
Mhm.
And it's not that I think anything would go wrong, but they'll relax more if it's not me. They won't put up the fight
Yeah, I
if it's
know.
not me. I won't have that argument about just lay down and let me do this. No, I don't want that.
Right. Well, talk to us about the power of attraction. I'm assuming you believe in it.
There's some weird studies about this too. I'll tell you, even in the last few weeks, I remember having a conversation with my wife, and we have this opportunity that I don't want to talk about too much,
Mhm.
but it fell into my lap, and I really feel like we were thinking about it. That thing was like, how do we get to this new place? How does this happen? What's that next level? What happens if everything in our life was all right?
Mhm.
And sure enough, some of the problems we were having just, hey, what happened there? Oh, that just went away.
Right.
Oh, you know what? By the way, there's this house that no one knows is for sale. They'd like us to live there. That's not a bad thing. We weren't even looking, but that was one of the master plans is, hey, we want to move. We want
Mhm.
this. We want that. And slowly those things are lining up. And what if it was just easy? God, how hard do we sometimes drag into a certain direction because we think that's what we want when we trust and when we go, no, I really need this.
Mhm.
You start finding that. I think I'm quoting a Rolling Stone song now. Uh,
What other healing modalities do you believe in and rely on?
I always find it funny because, yeah, I love to believe in stuff, but I also like having the data. I'm a clinician. I know it sounds weird coming from East Asian medicine and it always sounds so woo-woo and out there, but I really feel like those perfect therapies, when we talk about evidence-based stuff, it's yes, those studies exist, but more so the practitioner and the patient both think it's going to help and want it to help.
Mhm.
Everything we do at my office is evidence based, whether or not it's a modern technique or an ancient technique. We have whole body cryotherapy. There's 40 years of research on that. I love that therapy. I love saunas, and saunas have been used for thousands of years. And
Right.
yes, more and more data is coming out about how great it is.
Mhm.
As I think a lot of people think of it as like this spa thing that we do, and oh, it feels good and get a good sweat. And it's the long term use of it, the regular use of it, the benefits are amazing. We have a 48% reduction in all cause mortality. That means the major killers of human beings fall by 48% if you use a sauna
Mhm.
5 to 6 times a day. If you're using it daily, that number goes up even more.
Right.
And we're talking about cardiovascular disease. We're talking
Mhm.
about diabetes. We're talking about
Mhm.
cancer.
Right. What's cryotherapy? Could you explain that?
Yeah. So cryotherapy, it's funny because it kind of came on the scene, like it hit really hard, probably.
Recently.
Yeah. And we opened our clinic, and in my head, we were late. We already missed it. And yet we were one of the first three to have a unit in my entire state.
Mm.
Now we might be one of the only three to have made it. Within that, cryotherapy is when you have a rapid exposure to intense cold. So basically, what happens is you use liquid nitrogen to cool air down colder than any temperature on the surface of the earth.
Mhm.
And it's normally between negative 184 Fahrenheit, negative 260 Fahrenheit. And the reason your body can stand that is because you have to be very dry. You're not wet. You can't be sweaty. You can't have oils on. But
Mhm.
you go into this, and that rapid cold wrings you out like a sponge, for lack of a better description.
Mhm.
So that cold squeezes the skin, it squeezes the fascia, it squeezes the muscles, it squeezes the joint spaces, it constricts the blood vessels.
Mhm.
And that pushes all that blood, all that metabolic waste that was sitting in that tissue back to the core of the body,
Mhm.
where the body, through the liver pathways and the kidneys and even exhaling, can break down that metabolic waste and get it out or do something with it.
Mhm.
And then when you step out, your body is so afraid that it was going to freeze to death that it opens up all those blood vessels and pumps fresh blood back to that tissue. So you've got this one huge heavy hit of reduction of inflammation. And then you have this follow up of flooding that tissue with fresh blood with all the nutrients and oxygen your body needs.
Wow. That's awesome. If you could turn back time and talk
Yeah.
talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him?
I would tell them to lighten up, honestly. I mean, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and I'm half joking here, but I said to them, I would have screwed around so much more if I knew this is where I was going to end up, because I feel like there's nothing I could have done that wouldn't have led me here. So every little test, every little paper, I was the nerdy kid. I was very worried about it.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm like, God, I could have failed so many more tests. I could have had so much more fun, and I still would have ended up with my doctorate in acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
Well, you know what's amazing about your career choice is that you're not only really helping others, but you're creating a lifestyle that gives you such peace and
Hmm.
well-being. And I think more people should actually think about their careers and lifetimes as like, is this going to really make me feel fulfilled?
Hmm.
And so that's
Hmm.
a beautiful thing that you figured out.
Yeah, yeah. And I think some of the younger generations are getting it, right? They
Yeah.
don't want to just go to a job that just covers their expenses, and then they have to do that until they die. They
Yeah.
want something that has meaning. And it's funny, I did this business course where we're talking about every aspect of business, and we got to the hiring part, we got to the management, the staff parts.
Mhm.
And everyone's, oh, I can't stand millennials, or oh God, these Gen Zers. And I'm like, send them to me. I have a heart led business, as the term goes,
Right.
and they get it. They get
Mhm.
it. They understand we're trying to make a difference in people's lives,
Mhm.
and they go above and beyond on the daily. And I can't stop complimenting them, and I can't stop saying things when I get the chance to thank them.
Mhm.
because they make my job so much better. They make the patient outcomes so much better. They make the patient's life so much better. And I wouldn't be having as much fun or having the impact without them.
Yeah. Sounds amazing.
I love everything we talked about. These are all things that are very close to my heart and that can really help people.
Yeah, because I do think a lot of people aren't familiar with cryotherapy and even
Yeah.
cupping and acupuncture, and they do make such a huge difference. Obviously, I've been a believer in these types of healing
Mm.
modalities, and they make such a difference in people's lives. I'm really grateful that you shared that. Can
Oh,
you
thank you.
share with the audience how they can get in touch with you or buy your
Yeah.
book? And
Yep. That's the easiest one.
yeah.
I'm in Baltimore. My website's charmcityintegrative.com. And there you can find every information about the services we offer. If you're not local, you can find ways to work with me, either by booking me for shows or lectures, or even hire me as a consultant if you're interested in setting up a place like mine, or even have the space in your house to put together a little recovery area.
Oh, I
So
love
I
that.
love talking about this. I love helping people feel their best, and we want to offer so many options. And then the link to the book, of course, is there, but you can go to thecuppingbook.com. It's available on Amazon and every other online retailer that sells books.
Yeah, that sounds great. What gave you the idea to write the book?
I really saw this trend post COVID where people were focusing more on their health
Mhm.
and they needed to. And I really feel like this is something we lost, but they needed to take health back into their own hands.
Mhm.
And it's not that you shouldn't go to the doctor. I'm not anti Western medicine at all.
Right.
But going to the doctor twice a year and getting the blood work and saying, oh, you're okay, or oh, take this pill is not a true measurement of health.
Mhm.
It is eating that one salad and expecting to be healthy as far as your diet, or going to the gym once and working out and going, where are my abs? It is
Yeah.
this idea that we need to constantly work at it. We need to course correct. And
Mhm.
how are you going to live the life that you want to if you're not feeling healthy? So a lot of times we see in our clinic patients that they're told everything's textbook normal, but they still feel horrible.
Mhm.
And it's because they're not doing things at home to help themselves feel better. So cupping is this tool. It was home medicine. It was grandma's medicine. So
Mhm.
let's give it back to people. And that's really where my passion lies because I want to help as many people as possible.
I also want to thank you for just making the world a better place.
Oh, thank you.
And hopefully we'll be able to talk to you again soon. So thanks
Oh,
for
I love that.
coming. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Please find a comfortable position. You can be seated or just laying flat on your back, whatever makes you feel calm and confident. And just take a deep breath in, really inhale all that beautiful energy all around you. And a long exhale, letting go of any anger, sadness, worry, envy. Let it leave the body because these emotions are fine to feel, but then we need to just release and reset. So as you inhale, filling up with all the beautiful energy, exhale and release. Relax your brow, the muscles in your face, your lips. Maybe your lips part as you breathe. The tongue rests at the top of the mouth. Slowly scan the body, relaxing the neck and shoulders, and letting your arms feel loose and heavy. Your upper back, lower back relaxes. Your hips feel loose and relaxed. Imagine you're just melting into the sand. Your fingertips are in the sand, your toes are in the sand, and the sunshine is beating down into your cells, healing your cells, filling you up with vitamin C and D. Your legs feel loose and heavy, your feet relax. Your hands relax. You feel completely stable, peaceful, gentle, relaxed, and just smile at all the great things that are in your life, expressing gratitude for a roof over your head, for a loving family, loyal friends, reminders in your day of the glimmers in life, noticing the good in others, speaking only words of kindness, and walking with the knowledge that you are never, ever alone. Everyone is doing their best just like you. Everyone has a story behind their face you know nothing about. So it's easier to be gentle and kind, compassionate, learning how to express empathy. As you breathe in, think of one word you can repeat over and over. Maybe it is positivity, or Shiva, abundance. Whatever the word is, just repeat it over and over so that you don't get trapped in your thought process. We want to release the thoughts. Sometimes we become the thoughts, and if they are unhelpful thoughts, that can send us down a dark path. Keep light. Find people that like to laugh, cook food with you, listen to music. Just share harmony with those you like and dislike. You can always modulate your reactions to people that you dislike so you can coexist peacefully. And then eventually, what you don't like starts to dissipate, doesn't have any power over you. Remember that you control your feelings and you can minimize the impact of anyone on your well-being by choosing how you will respond. You are a good, courageous soul with infinite possibilities. You are spectacular, dynamic, talented. And you only need to believe in yourself to discover the world of possibilities. They're everywhere, right in front of you. And listen to the people around you when they compliment you. Is that something new you should try? And put yourself out there so that you fail a lot. And try again. And don't take it so personally. The failures are building your mind to be courageous, gentle souls. Keep going. Namaste.